Not take someone else's water. How's everyone doing today? It's great to be here with you. So I'm Paul Lilford from Tableau Software, and I'm here with my friend Joe Yen from Vertica, HP Vertica. Sorry, I shouldn't shorten your name. I'm a senior director of technology and market intelligence at Tableau. And Joe and I today are going to walk you through some of the things we see in big data. We're also going to talk about kind of the integration between Vertica and Tableau and why that's natural for big data and makes a lot of sense to business users. I'm going to move around a little bit, so I'll try not to do that too much. But I've been at Tableau about 2.5 years. I was one of Tableau's largest customers at United Healthcare. So I actually deployed at scale to well over 6,000 users an environment. That environment was very complex, as you would imagine in a Fortune 10 company. We owned every database. We owned every BI tool. We owned everything. And I was the person who brought Tableau into United. And I bought it in 2009 because I had 220 active projects with a team of 26 people. So I didn't buy Tableau for Tableau's visual thing. I had a pain, right? I had 220 projects. I was hired to be an agile group within the business. And we were slowing down. What was taking us 2 weeks before was now taking us 3. And that wasn't acceptable to any business user to take 3 weeks when they wanted it in a week, and we were doing it in 2. So we started to shift the way we work. So I bought Tableau because I had this pain, and I could put it against any source we owned. Let me make sure I do this clicker right. So as I mentioned, I'm with Tableau. And at Tableau, we have a very simple mission, and that's to help. Whoop. That slide jump on me? Okay, there you go. It came back. So our mission is to help people see and understand their data. And we take this very seriously, this mission. We talk about people because we empower the business analyst to do their own work, to have their own conversation with data. We don't have a technical barrier to entry for these users to do it. We have a drag and drop interface that's really simple and easy to use, and anyone that can use a mouse in a browser can learn it in days or weeks. And that's why business users love us. Right? They love it because they don't have to think about spelling SQL or IT or anything else. They just have this conversation with their data, and it works really well. So we think about that people part as a very important thing. And then the C part, we're a visual company. Right? We do visual analytics. We help you see outliers and trends in your data very quickly and relevantly, and you can drill in and ask another question of it. When we think about the understand part, it's really gaining insight. So data is irrelevant if you're not making decisions with it. If you're not changing the way you work in your business, data becomes irrelevant. If I've just got a bunch of data but I don't do anything with it, it's a problem. Data's the new oil, right? You've heard that before. Data is the most important asset that every organization has, and Tableau's view is we're going to empower the subject experts to work with that data themselves. And we talk about data because it's all about data, all types of data, unstructured, fully structured, social. Any type of data that a subject expert or an analyst might want to use, we need to be able to connect to. We connect to over 42 different stores as a side note. So who's using Tableau? We have over 30,000 customers, logos. We have over 1 million users of our product, our licensed product. We also have over 1 million users of Tableau Public, which is our free offering. So when you look at Tableau's rise over the last 11 years, we've gone from a company that no one knew to a company that's leading our market space. But if you look at the way we're used, we're leveraged across industries, across verticals. So we're not a vertically oriented tool. We're agnostic to that. We're a horizontal business application tool. You see us a lot in finance and marketing, but more and more in IT use cases, so visualizing your ETL jobs as an example. So there's all kinds of use cases across these verticals that we see. We do this with basically 2 products. I know I have 3 up there, but there's basically 2 products that Tableau has. We have our desktop product, which is the main client authoring product. So it's the tool that an analyst uses to have this conversation one-on-one with their data. And then from that product, they can just publish it to a server. We were going to try to do a demo for you today, but based on the logistics of it, we're not going to do it. But we do have demos both at the Vertica booth and at the Tableau booth, we're more than happy to show you. It's kind of the way you'll see it come to life. But our desktop product is the main vehicle that these analysts use. And then the server, think about that as the consumption product, right? Oh, yes, Jeremy has a breakout tomorrow, and he's going to be demoing today. Thank you. I need that, Dan. All the help I can get. So the server product is the consumption product. So if you want to consume these visuals over the web, when we publish to our server, it's pure HTML, HTML5. And so you can consume it over the web, over mobile devices, or anything you want. And then the third product we have up there is Tableau Online. And that's really a configuration of server. We host the servers, and it's Tableau's online product. But think of it as one of our two core products. It's our server hosted by us. And it's a term-based license. And at Tableau, we've been redefining BI. Now, we haven't done this on our own, right? This has happened over a course of years. So for the third year in a row, we're the leader in the BI quadrant, which we're happy about that. But I would submit to you that the most impressive thing about this is not that we're a leader in this quadrant. It's that Gartner 3 years ago redefined BI. They changed the meaning of it. It's now about business-driven, self-service, easy. These were not things 20 years ago or even 10 years ago that people talked about. I built my career being a technical person, right? I'm a BI warehousing OLAP guy. So I was the person who built the stuff for you if you needed it as a business user. And that model is broken. Personal devices have changed the way people think about this, right? Your iPhone, my 5-year-old can swipe it open and play music in Google, right? When I want to know anything, they're like, have you Googled it? I'm like, yeah, I should Google it. You're right. This has changed the way the workplace is, right? Business users expect that same ease in their work life. And they don't want this barrier to do it. They don't want to have to come track a guy like me down and say, hey, I need you to build me a report. That's old, right? That doesn't work. And even if I build it, they're either going to leave something out or the requirement's going to change. And they're not going to leave it out to be mean. They just don't know how to talk tech, right? So I'm going to be translating it to database and SQL, and they're going to be telling me from a business perspective what they want, and lo and behold, I'm never going to make them happy. But if I give it to them themselves and say, show me, they can show me in 5 or 10 minutes what they want, and it may not be production grade, but it'll be the right business requirement, right? And you can also, in that exercise, point out to them, you made an error in your calculation, right? You did this wrong. You used the wrong source. Things that business users actually don't really think about, right? They don't care where the data sits. They just care about, do I have access to it, and is it part of my job, right? And governance, they look at that as an excuse to tell them no, right? And they can justify doing anything they want because I'm just doing my job, just trying to get my job done. So the balance between a technical professional and this business user in this self-service world is in large part about getting a collaboration. I would also tell you that I think Tableau is a great vehicle for creating that collaboration because I'm not trying to pull a requirement out of you. You're having this fun exercise of talking with your data, and at the end of it, we've got something that we can actually work with. And if you're a database person, then you can reverse engineer that and make sure your databases support that activity at scale. So it's a big thing. So this is where we would normally give you a demo of the product. This is actually a screenshot of a demo that Vertica has. And this is something that all of their salespeople run. They've got samples. This is just a sample screen. And you can click on these and navigate to the self-service. The real art of Tableau, though, is how quickly you can create something like this, right? These really high-end visuals can be done in minutes or hours and be ready for production, right? And that's one of the shifting things in terms of this time to analytics, the speed of analytics. So here's a couple of examples of these screens, right? So here's something that's showing promotions over time, as well as the profit and ROI on those promotions, right? Very simply visually, you can look at the colors, look at the heat maps, look at where the points are falling and quickly understand things. Everything in a Tableau world is clickable, right? You can interact with it. So when in doubt, right-click it, click on it, do something, right? And you'll be able to ask the next question. And it's that iterative question asking that we think most about. It's not about answering the question, the one pain I have today. It's about the next insight you gain from asking that first question, right? And where business users always get frustrated even if you deliver something to them that meets their need, when they have the next question, if they have to come back to you and say, hey, we need you to build something else, and come back in a week and I'll have it for you, that doesn't actually work with the real-time nature of business. And so they find another way to do it, right? A couple more screens here that I'll blow through. Graphical, maps. These can be drill down, zoom to zips, all geocoded. But what we'd submit to you is Tableau, not on our own, with many of our competitors as well, we've created a new paradigm. The rules for the data center have changed. The rules for IT have changed, right? IT is shifting how IT works with the business. The CMO and the CIO have tighter relationships than they've ever had, right? Budget is driven out of the CFO and CMO's office, and they're prioritizing with the CIO. And that's very different than even 10 years ago, right? It was a battle for budget 10 years ago. And now it's how can we best spend our assets and our money. So what the business person thinks about is how fast can you give me access to data, right? And then the second thing is, can I get my results in less than 2 seconds? And if I can't, I'm going to find another way to do it. I'm going to download it to Excel, and even if it takes me 30 minutes to download it, when I ask a question, it's going to take me a second to answer it. So this is what IT is challenged with. The expectation of this group of users in organizations. And think about empowering, the group that we had at United. We had 100,000 employees. I had 6,000 Tableau users, to give you perspective. That's nothing in the big picture of the organization. If I had 100,000 users out there all asking their own questions of their data, how do you govern that? How do you manage that? And so what the challenge is data as a service, and pleasing business people is hard, right? It's really hard. And being an IT professional or a technical professional of any sort, trying to find this balance is the key. So things that have worked in the past, we would tell you are not sufficient. The idea of trying to take a transactional system and make it work for analytics doesn't really work. You're not going to break your general ledger to do analytics. You're not going to break your Salesforce system to do analytics. You're going to use those as write-back systems. And so these traditional transactional systems don't meet the needs of analytics. Creating star schemas is slow. Creating materializations, doing ETL is one of the biggest costs in an organization. And not necessarily the T part of ETL, but the extract and load part is really expensive. Every time you do that, there's no value add to the business user, right? If I move data 3 times, the business user doesn't care. They care about getting to the data. So that doesn't help them. So these thoughts are old thoughts. We don't believe there's a substitute today for real MPP databases like Vertica, right? Hadoop is improving all the time. They're investing like crazy, but it's not a sub-second query system. It doesn't give you 2-second query responses. You have to abstract data out to get that. Tableau has a data engine, but we're not a database company. It's not our goal. We have no desire to become Vertica. That's what Joe does really well, right? We have no desire to do that. So for small data, we can work really well. But the second the data starts to grow, we don't scale in that way, and we never intended to. So we would submit to you that the MPP database is really the only real way to support self-service at scale. You need a fast store. Now, the art of this might be you're not putting 10 years of history into your data warehouse anymore. You're putting the most relevant 2. And you're using Hadoop to store the rest, right? So you're storing everything. With Hadoop now, you're not archiving data, right? You're storing everything and persisting it forever. And you can always go and have conversations with it, but it's going to be latent. And then finding that right requirement and that right data to persist and do that at speed is the art of the new technician, right? How do I find the right data to persist that people are going to use and use in the database the way I intended, instead of printing it out or putting it on a thumb device or moving it to Excel, right? And that, as an enterprise guy, that bothers me. The thought of someone running around with a printed out sheet freaks me out, right? So there's advantages of these, right? With MPP, you get near real-time query and load, huge data volumes, billions of rows, right? With ease in navigation and 2-second query responses. It's something that IT already knows, right? You know how to work with traditional technologies, right? You know how to do ETL, you know how to tune a database, you know how to do these things. It also gives you a security layer that you desperately need. If I have the user in a database doing their work, I can audit and control it. And if you come from healthcare, you care about that. If you come from banking, you care about that, right? These are spaces where you have to know what's happening with that data. Even the management reporting type data, not just the regulatory stuff. And then you can get consistent blazing performance. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Joe to talk a little bit about how HP does that. But thank you.
Great. Thanks, Paul. Thanks so much. Good morning, everyone. Hope everyone's having a great time in the happiest place in America. My name's Joe Yen again. I help manage our business development efforts in the big data group within HP Software. So before I jump into Vertica, I actually want to share a little statistic. So we polled our customer base at Vertica. We discovered that 39% of our customers are using Tableau. There's a lot of very good reasons for using Tableau, and 39% of our customers have found those. A lot of those reasons that Paul just went over. So why did we create Vertica? Vertica was a startup that was acquired by HP roughly about 6 years ago. It was started off as a computer science project at MIT by a guy named Michael Stonebreaker, who you might have heard of. He started Postgres and Informix, Olustra way back a long time ago. But Vertica was started because there was a gap in what the prior generation of databases was able to accomplish, right? Databases that were designed for OLTP, for being able to provide asset consistency across high volumes of transactions. Great for keeping a database of record, not so great for managing very large sets of data and being able to read and run analytics on them with high performance. Looking at this solution, Stonebreaker and a number of people came up with this paper called the C-Store project, a column store project, where they decided to turn the architecture around. Instead of focusing on storing rows of data, they would instead break the data into the constituent columns, which would allow them to sort and better store them and scan and be able to read across them, but then be able to reconstitute the rows at query time and when you want to actually retrieve it. The advantages that this had over the existing systems was that it provided a much cleaner new architecture, almost a generational difference on how it was able to store, ingest, store, manage, and then perform analytics on different and very large sets of data. So what was achieved by this? If I can impart one key message about Vertica, it's that compared to a lot of other systems that can manage very large sets of data, Vertica is very fast and easy. Okay, it's blazingly fast because of some of the architectural reasons that I just went over, but it's also very simple in the sense that we don't actually want people to create indexes. You don't have to do a lot of optimization. You don't have to denormalize your tables. You just load it in, and there's a set of optimizers that'll actually look at the type of query that you're submitting to it. You could train it if you want to ahead of time, but it'll automatically figure out the best way to store and organize the data across a cluster of nodes so that it'll have the best performance for both loading and querying, and also for fault tolerance as well. It was designed to run across commodity servers. You could run Vertica on basically anything. The actual kernel itself is really small. I think it's only like 400K. You could run it on laptops. You could run it on commodity servers. You could, of course, also run it on DL3ADPs and the ProLiant line from HP as well. And it's built on an open architecture. This was designed as a software play, as a platform ecosystem play. And we have built-in support for Hadoop, R. In fact, actually, we have our own flavor of R that was developed by HP Labs that is one of the few distributions of R that can actually run in a highly parallelized fashion across a very large data set. And we support a wide range of ETL and BI tools, especially Tableau. And one of the other benefits of being able to store everything in a columnar format is that we could also get really good compression out of the data. So if disk space and actual data storage is an issue, we can actually see excellent performance. Conservatively, we'll say at least we see 4x compression. That's very conservative. We can go up to 100 in many cases, depending upon how structured the data is. So one of the statistics that Paul alluded to earlier was this 2-second rule. So there's been a number of studies done around how people use analytics. A lot of this is actually driven by the consumerization, I would say, of IT and people's expectations, right? I mean, we're all used to using Google now. We're all used to surfing the web. And on the web, you'll typically have less than half a second. You have milliseconds to be able to return results, return a page, have things load. Otherwise, you'll quickly lose the user, right? Maybe they'll wait, but the experience is broken. A lot of that's applicable as well to interactive analytics, right? You'll get the report, but if you want to drill down, if you want to look at something that catches your eye, you have roughly about 2 seconds before that experience becomes broken. And you might say, okay, well, fine, they click, it takes 2 seconds and so on. But it's not just one click, right? I mean, again, as something that Paul alluded to before, it's an iterative process. You want to enable the user to explore the data, to get into the zone of trying to think through the data and not see the page in front of them, if you will. You don't want them to get caught up in the delay or the technology. You want them to actually keep their head into the actual material itself. And that's where the magic happens, if you will. That's where creativity is kind of unlocked and where a lot of the really innovative and the best ideas come from, when they're able to keep their head in that kind of zone as they're exploring the data. One of the other things I do want to talk about is that, so Vertica is designed to do, I would say, a fairly well-defined set of things very, very well. I'll be totally upfront. You would never use Vertica for an OLTP scenario where you would have a lot of frequent updates or deletes, because you would lose a lot of the performance benefits of using something like Vertica. You would use it for being able to store and read historical data very, very quickly. But at the same time, within the bigger context of things, you would also use it in conjunction with things like Hadoop as well. So one of the ways that we look at Vertica is as one of the tiers within a data lifecycle model, right? So you wouldn't put everything within Vertica, right? Because there are certain things that you're not going to need a 2 second or actually really millisecond response on. There are cheaper ways to store large amounts of data, and starting from the bottom, if you look at the very bottom tier, you have cold and dark data, right? There's tape, there's Glacier, there's ways of very, very cost effectively storing lots of data which you don't need to retrieve very often. You might need to keep it for regulatory reasons, but you don't necessarily need to query or run analytics on it. Then there's going to be a lot of data where you might need it. You might want to do some exploration on it. And we feel that Hadoop is a great solution for that. HP has made a $50 million investment in Hortonworks. We work well with all of the Hadoop distributions, and we're huge fans of the Hadoop ecosystem. And there's a number of features that Vertica supports for being able to interactively query directly against data within Hadoop, as well as run within the Yarn framework as a Yarn process to some degree. But there will be sets of data where you're going to want to be able to enable this type of interactive exploration, this type of interactive analytics, and you're going to want to store that into a solution like Vertica, an MPP columnar data store, where you can get that very, very fast response, not just on querying, but also being able to run analytics on it, which becomes very computationally intensive. So one of the customers that's doing actually exactly what I just described is Facebook. They're one of our biggest customers for both Vertica and Tableau. I can't go into too many details because they're very cagey about what they do, but they do have very large amounts of data. They collect pretty much everything, and you can imagine how many users they have worldwide. They don't put all of that within Vertica. They have massive data lakes, and what they'll do is that they will accelerate the availability of some portion of that data, and it's very, very large because of the scales that they're working at, and they'll put them within Vertica, and then they'll do their advertising analytics, they'll do their user analytics, they'll do their actual, I would say, product metrics and so on as well. I can't go into too much detail there, but they're a very metrics-driven company, and they care very much about how people are actually using the features that they're rolling out and the changes that they do and the testing that they do on the site. So this has become a very important tool for their product management organization.
Yeah, so I'll give you guys a couple of customer points as well that I think will reiterate some of the speed things. So we have a couple of joint customers. One I have to leave, nameless, but it's a large media company. And I was working with them about 1.5 years ago. And they own Hadoop, they own other databases, they own a number of things. And they were struggling with big data projects, as they called it. Now, it's kind of a funny thing to call something a big data project, because what does that mean? Does it mean you're in Hadoop, or does it mean you have a lot of data, or what is it, right? Because it's all relative. But they probably had 600 million rows of data or so that was not usable for them. And kind of in passing, I mentioned my friends at Vertica, and I said, have you tried the free terabyte of Vertica that's out there? Not thinking about it, just saying, have you tried columnar? And they said, well, we've been thinking about it, but no. So less than 3 months later, they came back, and they were touting this as their most successful big data project ever. And they delivered in 3 months what they could not deliver in 1.5 years of work with other technologies. And it was very simple. They loaded the data into Vertica, they put Tableau, which they love, on top of it, and it worked. And they had the most interactive set of users that they had across any project in the company. One of my favorite Vertica stories is old, and you've maybe heard it, but we have a customer, Barnes Jewish Hospital. And when I was a customer of Tableau's, I saw them speak. And they track every heartbeat, every drug administered, every patient admitted to a hospital. And in the face of doing this, the doctor who was running the hospital had to cut his staff by 2 people. And they actually got better analytically over that period of cutting 2 people, because they could see trends. They could see if you had an allergy to a drug, right? And their technicians, hands-on, had dashboards showing them that, hey, you're about to give this person a drug they're allergic to, right? So that kind of use case is a really sexy one. And if you think about the amount of data, if it's every shot, every drug you give, every drink of water a patient takes, every person coming in and out, and you're tracking every bit of it, right? And then you've got a staff of 14 technicians that need to actually ingest this data in real time so you don't make a mistake. And that mistake's not you missed your number, right? That mistake is someone's life, right? It's a real thing. So it's not, oh, I just missed my number by a little bit, I can make that up. This is life and death. And that case for me is one of the best cases. It's well documented, I think, on both of our websites if you want to look at it. It's a really great one. The biggest thing I would submit to you is, we've talked about speed being important, and the business user doesn't really care about the challenges of IT, right? They've got no preconception about what you do. They just think you don't do it fast enough if you're IT. And I got the same thing my whole life, so I was hired by business people to be faster IT. But the same thing happened with me, right? We built things, and the second we built it, it was great the day we built it. The next day it was too slow, or it changed. And you had to adapt to that. So using this kind of self-service method and this easy-to-use technology with a scalable database provides a really quick way to get to enterprise-scale analytics, right? And the production gradeness of that, if that's a word, is really important, right? The production readiness of that type of infrastructure is key, because if I as an individual create a great visual that makes my life better today, it doesn't necessarily help my organization, right? Tableau's been great at empowering individuals to organizational success through getting more and more users. The challenge in big data today, though, is really thinking about an architecture and an infrastructure that drives from the enterprise down, empowers individuals, but also keeps in mind the overall goals of an enterprise, not just single lines of business needs, right? We can make a guy in finance really happy with Tableau, but that doesn't necessarily make the person in HR doing work happy, right? And so the enterprise readiness of it is having a back end that can scale and be secure and consistently fast. And if you have that, you can support lines of business. You're not boiling the ocean to build a warehouse anymore. You boil a cup at a time, and if it gets cold, you can throw it out. And if you like it, you can persist it and keep going. And the modern architecture is mostly about, if you're going to fail, fail quickly or succeed quickly. But you can't fail over 2 years and millions of dollars to find out that your warehouse did not meet the needs of your organization, right? And so we love that. You can go to both of our websites. Tableau lets anyone download our products for free for 14 days. You can try them. We have self-training videos that are all free as well, so you can watch the videos and learn how to do things. And Vertica's got some great content sitting on their site that you can download.
Yeah, just to expand on what Paula mentioned, so the Vertica Community Edition, Vertica CE, was what this media company had tried. We basically give away the first terabyte for free. Vertica's pricing is per terabyte, but Vertica CE is a version it's a full version. It's a full code base. You're authorized to use it up to a terabyte and across 3 nodes. So you'll get the benefits of parallelism. We have a number of customers going production on it. If you want enterprise support, you'll have to upgrade to the full version, but the other license. But point being is that you can get started on this very quickly. You could download this and run this on your computer. It's on AWS as well. We have a couple test drives coming up. But you can download on your computer. You can load data into it. You don't need to tune it. You don't need to do indexes. You don't need to really do much to it. And you can immediately see blazing fast performance off the queries.
So thank you guys for your time today. We really appreciate it. We'd love it if you would stop by the booth and say hello. And if you have questions, please stop by and ask them.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
Great. Thank you, guys.